Looks pretty snazzy, right? So Ron finished this side out. I mean, he still has to do a little work on the inside, and then he's still going to do the other side. But now at least we can get a little extra tire in here. The tire on the other side is actually rubbing against the inside here. So that's one of the reasons we had to do that. The rear end isn't exactly straight in the car, or the quarters are a little shifted. I know, it doesn't really matter. But now we have some tire clearance. But I just wanted to show you that before we talk about what I wanted to talk about today. And that's our Mission Impossible build. So it's been a little while since we did an update on this thing. As we explained early on, Andy, David, very busy guys, and they can't devote that much time to this, so it's one of those things that gets worked on and it gets put aside, worked on, put aside. But David dropped a video last night. They're working with the carburetor. So David dropped a video last night that contained within is some of the most absolutely brilliant, simple engineering to be found anywhere on YouTube. So they're working on the BBD. Wait, before I even talk about what they're working on, let's recap the purpose of this project. So the idea here is not to build an ultimate 318. That has nothing to do with it. The idea behind this project is to take a typical production engine and then applying all of the science and all of the theory and all of the tricks that people like David and Andy have come up with over the course of their lifetimes, applying those tricks to this engine to achieve a result of 1 horsepower per cubic inch using unlikely parts, like this Carter BBD. So we originally set out the parameters of this video, or of this series, as working entirely with stock parts. Now, somewhere along the line, the translation got a little skewed, but we're all back on track right now. So all stock parts, meaning that all of the things that came on a mid-70s smog era 318, like the least glorious engine you could possibly imagine. So we're talking about the low compression pistons, we're talking about the low compression smog cylinder heads, we're talking about the stock intake manifold, we're talking about the stock carburetor, all of those things. So we're back on track with that. And also there's another gentleman involved in this too. His name is Charles Savidio. He was a student of David's, and Charles is working on the intake manifolds. They're going to try 2 different intake manifolds on this, a single plane and a dual plane, both from that smog era. He's also working on a set of the 302 heads, the closed chamber 302 heads, but those are not for this engine. It was more or less an experiment just to see what would happen, and those are good heads, but not for this engine because they deviate from that low image, low performance smog era thing. So that's what's going on with that. So at any rate, David and Andy started dissecting the BBD and putting it on the flow bench. And the things that they've achieved with this carburetor so far, you're going to have to watch that video to get all of the details. So I'm not going to like, this isn't going to be a spoiler. Well, go watch the video. Trust me, absolutely worth your time. But what they've accomplished so far with just a little bit of work is that they now have this carburetor capable of supporting that 1 horsepower per cubic inch, that 318 horsepower goal of this engine. Will we make the goal? I think we're going to come really, really close. Is it possible we exceed it a little bit? This is the bottleneck. But the idea was to get to 318 horsepower with this low compression, smog era, stock part 318. And as of right now, they have modified this carburetor enough to support the 318 horsepower. Absolutely amazing stuff. The tidbits of knowledge, and here's why you should be following this series, even if you have 0 interest in 318s, 0 interest in stock parts, 0 interest in any of this. Because the tricks and the tips, the things, the kernels of knowledge that are being dropped during the course of doing stuff like reworking this carburetor, transfer to every single engineer. The things they're learning and demonstrating on the BBD carburetor transfer directly to a Holly, or to a Rochester, or a Carter, or a Edelbrock. It goes across the board. It doesn't matter what you're working with. The ideas here transfer. And that's the exercise. The exercise is to put people's minds to work and come up with solutions for these bottlenecks. And in the course of doing so, when you find that a mismatched gasket is worth this much, and smoothing this is worth that much, and so on and so forth, you can start to see where it all adds up, and you come up with this package of unlikely junk parts that, as of right now, on paper, look like they're going to hit that goal. Now, to put it in perspective, at 318 horsepower, 318, the highest rating for the 340 was only 275 horsepower. So just to put it in perspective, and like I said, it's not that we're building an ultimate 318. That's not the goal. The goal is to illustrate and highlight the science and the techniques behind making power. So with that, they've completed pretty much the airflow work on the carburetor, and now they're going to start working on the fuel system part of the carburetor. So on David's video yesterday, they did the airflow. And Andy is now working on revamping the boosters and the fuel circuitry of the carburetor to meet the goal. And he'll be dropping that video within the next day or two. And Charles Savedio, like I said, he was a student of David's. He's employing all of the science that he learned. Very interesting videos. Go over there and check out what he's doing on it. So this is a multi-channel effort. And basically all I'm at this point is just a cheerleader. So, and I'm cool with that, because watching experts like these do their thing is how I learn, it's how you learn, it's how we all learn, it's how we raise the science. That's what we're all about. The links to their channels will be in the description of this video. So also now, along these lines of experimentation and playing around with this sort of stuff, we've got our mule engine together. Now, so for you guys who aren't familiar, we have a 67 Belvedere in the backyard at the house. And we've had a few different intended purposes for that car, but we decided on using it as a mule, a test mule, to try different concepts and different ideas and quantify these things. And that's what we built this engine for. So this 361 is the same block that we welded up the freeze cracks in, I guess it was maybe a month or two ago, but it's all together now. And the purpose of this engine is to be a very typical, moderately sized American V8 with a moderate everything, and to quantify different ideas. Meaning that operating temperatures, what's the optimum operating temperature for this combination? Spacers, it's adding and subtracting spacers, ignition timing, different fuels, spark plug gaps. Like, how much of a difference does, once you've got a combination that's scienced and consistent, what changes does a different coil make? So you understand what I'm saying? The idea here is to have a very typical engine and then try all of these different scenarios with it to see what works, what doesn't, and what compounding things work together. Nothing radical. You're not going to be swapping cams and heads in and out of it, but external things that anybody can follow along and experiment on their own engines. So that's it for now. Lots of cleaning up to do. This place is a mess because I've been in like mechanic mode and not like video making mode. So I've got debris. Show them the debris that's all around this place, so that they can see what kind of pig I am when I'm actually like. This is just terrible. You get debris everywhere. But yeah, that's my next mission, is to get this place cleaned up, and then we get back to our 4.0. So that's it, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.